The picture quality is fine, the lighting is fine. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So we'll start. I'll start with a small introduction about what we do and about you, and then we'll move to the questions. Is that okay, sir?
Yes, fine. Whichever way you use your tell me.
Done, sir. So, hello, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning, good evening to everybody, wherever you are watching this. Welcome to Esteemed FaceTime with Leaders, an initiative by World Development Corporation. My name is Tane All, and I'm an anchor with World Development Corporation. So, FaceTime with Leaders is a platform where industry titans come together to share their knowledge, ideas, thoughts, best practices with one another, as well as upcoming future leaders. In a nutshell, we attempt to encapsulate the great learnings by our leaders and pass it on to future generations. We also hope that by conducting these FaceTime with Leader interviews, we can bring together a global community of eminent personalities. By bringing together such visionaries on one platform, we hope to play a part in inspiring the lives of one another. Great learnings from great leaders undoubtedly help everyone, since we can identify, nurture, and use the success formulas that have proven successful already to so many people. And this is what we aim for here, sir, with these sessions, making them a gathering of industry stalwarts and a knowledge sharing community. We have one such industry veteran on FaceTime with Leaders with us today, Mr. Deepak Sehgal. A very warm welcome to you, sir, this morning.
Thank you, Tanmay, for a very elaborate introduction.
I will give a small introduction about you also, sir, to our viewers.
Yes.
Mr. Sehgal has a remarkable 4-decade-long career in the global petroleum and chemical industries and stands out as a paragon of expertise, leadership, and strategic acumen. His extensive experience spans across esteemed organizations like Royal Dutch Shell, Oman Oil Company, Qatar Petroleum, and National Organic Chemical Industries, wherein he actively contributed to the transformation, expansion, and profitability of these entities. His exceptional skills encompass stakeholder engagement, governance, risk management, strategic planning, and the successful execution of capital products. In his latest role, he has served Qatar Petroleum in the position of Senior Principal Commercial Advisor. Thank you so much, sir, for making some time out for us today.
Thank you once again for this introduction. And let me start with you about a brief summary of how and where I started my career. I have about a 4-decade-long career in the oil and gas sector, mainly with the downstream businesses, which is refining petrochemicals, fertilizers, aluminium smelters, and so on. The organization, as you said, I work with the very strong multinationals and the national oil companies, and including a very important, that time, domestic company called NOSIL in India. I have been out of India for about close to about 2 decades, little over 2 decades in Shell and other national oil companies. So my career, I would put it in two parts. My first span from 1981 until 1999 in India, and from 1999 until the end of my career in retire, when I retired at the age of 60 overseas. Throughout my career, I was lucky to have been associated with very talented people, the right set of people, strong leadership and management teams, who subjected me not only to the new challenges, but also acted as my mentors in the earlier stages, developed my skills, and later on gave me enough opportunity to utilize those skills in important business initiatives. I think I would say working in a very strong company in India was a stepping stone for my success, which later led me into bigger and better assignments overseas. My career in Shell outside India started with, before I started with Shell in the Middle East, where I was part of the management team for a joint venture of Shell with the Saudi Arabian government. It was called Saudi Petrochemical Companies. The dimensions of businesses in this trade, as you know, runs into multi-billion-dollar US dollars. So they're very big stakes. But the teams were very small and inefficient teams. I was a part of the shareholder team overseeing the investments on behalf of Shell in the Saudi. That initial assignment in the Middle East gave me enough exposure to understand about the JV governance, JV management, drivers of profitability, managing through people, working through people, and all the insights of a business at a higher level. Having worked in the Shell Middle East for a very long time, I was moved into Shell India and the Shell Global Solution. more as a refinery person to help Indian refineries improve the value and the profitability. From Shell Global Solutions in India, I moved back into the Middle East and I worked for Oman Oil Company as the investment manager, where I once again, from the shareholder side, I oversaw their petrochemical refineries and fertilizer investments, running into multi-billion dollars. I was in that position that gave me further insight where I was not only working through the board of directors and the CEOs of the company, I was also able to understand the shareholders' point of view for those investments. I worked for their strategy and the corporate governance, including ESG and CSRs, and then later moved into Qatar Petroleum International as a head of commercial and marketing. Qatar Petroleum International essentially was an arm set up by QP, Qatar Petroleum, to develop and oversee their foreign investments. I was the commercial and the marketing lead and a part of the downstream management team for overseeing and developing these investments in China, Vietnam, Africa, and in the domains of refining and petchems and fertilizer space. I was also instrumental and a part of the steering team to acquire a company, refining company in Egypt. In QP, Qatar Petroleum International, I was also nominated in their EXCOM executive committee to oversee two running assets in Singapore. They were very large assets, and my key role there and achievement there was portfolio and the customer rationalization, integration of those JVs for value enhancement. All through this experience of asset management and the investment management, I learned the entire gambit of ESG, importance of ESGs and the corporate governance. Once Qatar Petroleum International was absorbed into QP in 2015, I became a part of Qatar Petroleum, where I was a part of the management team of downstream businesses in Qatar Petroleum, where I was a member of the risk committee, strategy committee, investment committee, capital projects development committee, and so on, as the name say. I also started their market intelligence department right from scratch to make sure that the companies at that level have the ability to imbibe more information from the external world to tailor their production processes and the portfolios internally for optimizing the value. From Qatar Petroleum in Qatar Petroleum, I finally retired as senior advisor in the downstream business. I have come back to India in the year 2020, and after coming back to India in 2020, I did a short assignment with a private equity player in the UK for a retrofitting a refinery unit close to South America. But I have made up my mind to stay back in India, and therefore I have decided to now get into this business domain of independent director in India. I'm looking forward really to hopefully add some value, bring some value to this Indian industry. And I've recently acquired the passed the proficiency test and so on in the directorship. That's a little bit of background I have on this. If you have any questions, you can go on, Sanjay.
No, wonderful, sir. I mean, that's just
It was long, actually. I wanted to keep it crisp, but I couldn't.
No, sir, we want to know all of it, sir.
I still have a very long one, but I made it
No,
very.
no, sir. It's a long and wonderful journey, sir. We want to hear about it. We want
No,
no part cut
in
short.
the process, I've set up independent power project.
Okay.
I have in the Saudi Arabia. I have helped demerger of a company. I have acquired a company. So multiple activities, as you say, it's a career spanning 40 years. So a lot has happened in this time.
And sir, throughout your professional life, all these years, what do you feel has been your biggest strength?
I think biggest strength is how do you come across people? My biggest strength became the integrity and the market knowledge. A deeper market insight was the first to start with. Followed, I think, complemented with the integrity when I came across. I personally feel that is the most important skill or trait to have. And then the rest follows if you have a curious mind, willing to learn all the time, challenge yourself. I'm a person who never likes to be in a comfort zone for a long time. I'm in a comfort zone, but then I'm thrown into a challenge and I like to take that challenge and I move on. So I think these are the couple of things I would say that they stood out for me.
Noted, sir. And
Yeah.
sir, in your career long journey, what were the greatest learnings you got in all these years from different parts of the country, different countries? How would you summarize the different learnings you had?
On a softer side, I would say that the most important skill is learn to work through people with the people. Whichever we all in the when I went overseas, I learned to realize that I had to work with people from all different nationalities, with different mindsets, different perceptions, different biases, and working and learning from them, working with them and learning from them was a very unique experience. I would say I was struggling a bit in the initial first year, but after there on, it became my second nature. And when I found everybody else is behaving in a way which is more issue driven rather than a person driven, it really helped us a lot. So I would put that as my biggest learning on a softer side. On the also the second one on the softer side, I would say, as I always said to you earlier, is challenge the status quo. You know you have achieved a lot, but there is no perfection. So you can always achieve more within the boundaries set up by the vision and the vision of the organization you work for, or wherever you are. Actually, even at home you can do the same example. You can always improvise. I think these two are the most important one, and the rest are be nimble, be flexible, be sharp. Yeah, create opportunities. I would also say create opportunities sometimes, which basically essentially means have a positive attitude. Essentially, sometimes we can see a dark side or a positive side. And when we look at the dark side, we see bigger dark side. So stop that and see what can you do. Find a solution and then move around. I think these are a couple of learnings. Soft on the softer side. On the hard side, there is no match to hard work and deeper knowledge and insights and business. Yeah.
Sir, sir,
I
how and
hope I'm clear. Otherwise, let me know if
yes,
I'm
sir. No, no, absolutely, sir. I mean, all these skills are always which we undermine at times,
wrong
but
because
at
you
the
guys are
end, in the long,
experienced. Yeah.
yeah. So from years of experience, we're learning that these basic things are what's most important, I guess, sir.
That's what I learned actually, because as I
Yeah.
said, I was always lucky to work with the right set of people.
Hmm.
And when you sometimes you have to be fortunate, and when you work with them, you're always looking at what makes them successful. And there has to be something different they do actually. And if you keep on learning that way, you improve yourself. And that's what I did essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sir, how and when did you, get the exposure to sustainability and corporate governance?
And my multiple experiences. My earlier experiences in India, I was not very much exposed to the corporate governance side, except I would say I managed a small business operation,
Hmm.
which was managing a business in India from A to G, but that was more on the marketing side. But still, I was responsible for people, managing people, which is a ESG, part of ESG, treating them fairly and respectful manner, part of ESG, so on and so forth, as you know. But I was also responsible for managing safety and health and security in the operations and the environment, because I was always working for a chemical company called NOSIL. So when you transport these hazardous chemicals, safety considerations are very important.
Yes.
So that was my first exposure to ESG in that sense, but it was a very basic and early exposure. But one thing I did observe in NOSIL, that was NOSIL being a part of a 50% JV of Shell companies in India, in Bombay. They created a new division that time in 80s I'm talking about, called HSE, Health, Safety and Environment Division, which was a relatively a new concept or a nascent concept in India. And not only did they do that, I also observed that time that we had a senior management member as a part of the management team, and it became a core function of the team. So I realized that this is going forward, this is an important function. But having said that, when I moved to the parent, 100% parent company, shell company overseas, I had a work experiences with people in Singapore, Europe, and Americas, everywhere. And I found that indeed ESG, which is HSSC, safety, social, everything, and governance, is a core principle. It's a license to operate, actually. If you don't have them, you cannot operate in those levels, and that is what makes those companies different and world-class companies. So that is what I observed. So I was always exposed to them. For me, it was a mandatory requirement to at least meet those requirements, if not exceed them. So meeting was the minimum criteria. We were also subjected to regular trainings, and in every action we were doing or the business activity we were doing, we were responsible for managing those requirements, and we were annually appraised and audited for those requirements. So it was a lot of emphasis, actually. Not only our audit happened to what we performed, we were also benchmarked against peers. For example, my performance in Shell was benchmarked against our performance of my peer in Chevron and ExxonMobil at a company level, at an aggregated company level. So there was a lot of emphasis on the ESG principles. And in terms of governance, our work process auditors, and governance is a system, as you know, it has structure and the processes. So we had a process audit regularly in Shell. Not only what I do, how I do, and when I do, and what mistakes I do I follow the principles? Very standardized process. So we were also subjected to a lot of governance checks and balances. So I was accountable. I also, when I moved to Shell, as I told you, I was part of various committees. In Shell with the Saudi Petrochemical Company, I was part of their business team and marketing steering committees. In Oman Oil Company, I was part of their investment committee team and working with the board members for the joint venture assets. In Qatar Petroleum International, I myself was responsible and accountable for developing certain corporate governance and the ESG manuals for the new companies, new investments in China and other parts of Asia and Africa. And for the running existing assets within the Middle East, which I was responsible for, we were also periodically monitoring and mentoring on the ESG and the CSR and the corporate governance aspects. So fairly elaborate and a long experience. I would say almost 25 years in that sector, in the corporate governance. It's an integral part of the business, actually.
Yeah.
So only driving profitability is only one aspect. But driving profitability the right way is the more important, at least for the multinationals and the overseas companies I have come across.
Yeah.
So keep in mind, Tanmay, I'm relatively new in India in that sense. I've lost touch with the Indian industry, and the Indian industry has really radically changed in the last 25 years. So some of my observations might first sound outdated, but that is what they are.
Sir, and as a ESG and corporate governance expert, what values do you bring along?
Hands-on experience.
Hands-on, correct.
Because this is what I have done in the last 25 years, actually.
Yes,
ESG,
sir.
as I said, is an integral part. I don't see ESG and corporate governance different from the driving profitability, which the business people drive. So for us, it was an integral part. So every committee, for example, if a member of a risk committee we are looking at all the kind of risk, environment side of the risk, climate change kind of risk, carbon dioxide risk, carbon credit risk, opportunities, treating people fairly and respectful risk, paying wages respectfully, everything, and the governance, meeting the country compliances with the country law, regulations, competition law. In fact, the competition law was very strict. Regulation was very strict for us in the international companies. So ESG hands-on experience in all the 4 or 5 companies I worked in the last 2 decades overseas. That is a kind of value I bring, apart from my business acumen and business sense, which is normal. I was heading the commercial and marketing. So even with the other shareholders, when I was engaging with the other shareholders and renegotiating some of the contracts, we were now injecting newer elements of corporate governance, compliance with the corporate governance. That was an integral part of our new agreements. Even in the new investments, for example, if I have to set up a refinery in China, we were putting a cost penalty of carbon dioxide leakage in the atmosphere. We penalize the project because we know sooner or later we'll have to pay that penalty cost somewhere else. We have to. So we were penalized. So in fact, some of these companies overseas I worked for, they're so far ahead in terms of project appraisals and looking at these issues seriously.
Amazing, sir.
Should
Sir,
should I add more? Less? Let me know,
no,
please.
no, sir, you're going perfectly. And like you said, maybe this in India is taken. Do you also feel that in India it's probably taking longer to step in rather than outside countries, sir?
Sorry, come again, please.
Do you feel, sir, that in India, companies looking into this has probably come in later than the outside world?
So there are two things. It is, first of all, it is need-based. It starts with a need, essentially.
Correct.
And later on, depending on your ambitions, if you have to play a game at a global level, then you're compelled to do it. So companies I worked for, multinationals, for example, like Shell, they had no choice but to do it at a global scale because they have to have a uniform standards and practices. The same standard and practice will be employed in America, North America, and the same will go in Asia. They do not differentiate. But for a domestic player, situation may be different. And it is also a matter of, scale, knowledge, awareness, need, and also the capital. It needs money also, because when you start investing in the environment, managing the environment with the best in class technologies, you need more money. And I'm sure in Indian chemical industry has come a long way, and I haven't seen anything negative in the press so far in the last year and a half. So I assume that Indian chemical industry is also catching up or caught up already with the best practices in the world. But keep in mind, catching up with the best practices is an evolutionary process. You keep on improving.
Yeah.
There is no end to it. What is good today will not be good 5 years down the road. Yeah, so it will look obsolete. What we do today may look obsolete, for example. So it's a continuous improvement. It's a continuous improvement process. And everybody's at a different level in that race. Yeah.
Sir, my next question is, over the past years, what are some of the most remarkable changes you feel in the changes in technology? And secondly, what changes do you expect in the future with the advent of new technologies such as IoT, AI, ML, blockchain, big data, Web 3.0? So how you seen it change, and what do you see in the future? Where can this go, sir?
I think the changes are obvious. Changes are on a daily basis. We do not notice those changes. But if you put a zero line 1 year down the road and now look at it now, you would see the needle has moved. So the change is continuous. And I think technology in that sense is a big enabler. Big enabler because it has always, so far, it has helped us improve our life, quality of our life. And it makes sure that the industry which is operating today keeps itself future ready all the time. So we have to accept the technology. When and how we imbibe that technology is a matter of choice, capability, and requirement sometimes. I have come across certain areas where people are already talking about putting robots in the routine production setups. For example, car manufacturing, even in the chemical industries. So AI is a norm. Machine learning will be a norm. Digitization has already come in a long way. Big data analytics, as you know, without data analytics, we cannot even work a day today. Without realizing that there's a lot of digitization has happened in the back. Even everything we are talking today is being digitized, right? So digitization is a new way of life. Today, people sitting in Bangalore are controlling some of the chemical manufacturing plants, processes in Europe and Asia. It is possible only because of technology. You don't have to hire a person in Europe. You can rather hire two people in India and do the similar job. So that is what has happened. So I think technology is a big lever. I'm a big fan of technology, and I think it will only increase, not reduce, going forward.
Sir, as you know, we're building a community here of industry magnates. The move is meant for cross-pollination of knowledge and building a knowledge-sharing community of corporate giants and industry experts. What are your thoughts about this initiative taken by Mr. Zishan Pathan, Mr. Heval Mehta, and the whole World Development Corporation team?
I'll split it in two parts. First of all, it is a very noteworthy initiative, whoever has taken. Thank you to Jishan and
Heval, sir.
Iman. Imparting education, preparing people for readiness of the board, joining the board is one aspect. I think it's beginning, but it can go really a long way, and it can. I personally feel it can culminate into a knowledge economy. For example, sharing and cross fertilization of knowledge and skills and experiences. For example, what went right, what could go wrong, what went wrong. That kind of data, if managed properly, can really build into a huge repository of information and knowledge.
Yes, sir.
And to me, eventually, this is how the knowledge consultancy companies actually use. They make it a business model. So all the consulting company, this is the business model actually.
Yeah.
Bringing good people together, getting the best out of them, sharing, pooling the knowledge, sharing the knowledge, storing that knowledge somewhere,
Yeah.
and utilizing it for future generation. I think it can become a business model. So kudos to them. And eventually it can have a company and a startup company with its own P&L and a good culture, strong culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I see it actually. I liked it actually. That's the reason I jumped into it initially. Yeah.
Great, sir.
It worked.
Yeah. Sir, that brings us to the end of our session. It was fantastic conversing with you, and I'm confident that your insights will greatly inspire future leaders. Thank you for joining us today and wish you the best for your future endeavors. Moreover, trust you that this initiative by Directors Institute unquestionably has expanded the participants' understanding and enriched their minds. So, thank you so much once
Yes,
again.
indeed. Thank you so much, Tanmay. Thank you. Good luck.
Have a great day ahead, sir.
Thank you.
Bye, sir.